So picture this, September 2nd, 1898. Out on a plain in the Sudan, two massive armies are about to collide. On one side, you've got soldiers fighting for an empire. On the other, warriors fighting for a profit. But this was so much more than just a battle. It was like a collision of centuries, a brutal, shocking demonstration of new technology that would change the face of war forever. This is the story of Omdurman.
When we think about this period in history, this is the kind of image that probably pops into your head, right? It's heroic, it's chaotic, a whirlwind of men and horses in this desperate, glorious charge. This is exactly how the public back then wanted to see warfare, all about courage, steel, and honor. It's a really powerful image. But it's nowhere near the whole story.
And then you read this. This quote from an eyewitness just slices right through that romantic vision. An execution. I mean, that word, it suggests something cold, calculated, and horrifically one-sided. So how can both of these things, the glorious charge and the brutal execution, describe the very same event? That's the puzzle we're going to unpack here.
Okay, so to really understand why this battle even happened, we need to rewind a bit. For the British Empire, this wasn't just another colonial campaign to grab territory. Oh no, this was personal. This was about revenge for a fallen national hero.
It all really kicks off 13 years earlier. Back in 1885, a charismatic religious leader, Muhammad Ahmad, the self-proclaimed Mahdi, led his followers to capture the city of Khartoum. The British general there, Charles Gordon, was killed, and he instantly became a martyr back in Britain. For more than a decade, that defeat just simmered. Then, finally, in 1896, London gives the green light. Major General Herbert Kitchener gets the job, reconquer the Sudan, and this is the important part, avenge General Gordon.
So the stage is set for this huge showdown. But, and this is the absolute key to the whole story, this was never going to be a battle of equals. Not even close. It was a stark, brutal mismatch between two completely different eras of warfare.
I mean, just look at the difference here. This slide tells you everything. On one side, you have Kitchener's force, a true army of the industrial age. They've got rapid-firing rifles, the game-changing Maxim machine gun, and even artillery support from gunboats on the River Nile. And on the other side, the Mahdist army. Incredibly brave, for sure, but armed mostly with spears, swords, and some very old rifles. This wasn't just army versus army, it was the 19th century crashing headfirst into a much, much earlier way of fighting.
All right, now these numbers, they tell a wild story. Just look at the top line. The Mahdist army, known as the Ansar, had a massive advantage in sheer numbers, more than 2 to 1. On paper, you'd think they could just swarm and overwhelm the invaders. But then your eye drifts down to the casualty figures, and the whole narrative just flips. 12,000 Mahdists killed, compared to just 48 on the other side. This table basically tells you the outcome of the battle before we even get to the first shot.
So, with Kitchener's army dug in and the Mahdist forces gathered for the attack, the battle kicks off on the morning of September 2nd, 1898. Let's walk through how it all went down.
So here's Kitchener's game plan. He set up his 25,000 men in this big defensive semicircle, with their backs right up against the River Nile. And this was a brilliant move, because it meant his flanks were protected by gunboats on the river that could pound the enemy with artillery. From this strong position, all they had to do was wait for the much larger Mahdist army to come to them. The battle started with an act of unbelievable courage that ended in absolute horror. About 16,000 Mahdist warriors just charged straight at the enemy line. And they ran right into a storm of steel. First, the artillery started hammering them from almost 3 kilometers away. Then, as they got closer, the Maxim guns and the riflemen opened up with disciplined, rapid fire. The charge was just shredded. 4,000 men fell, and not a single one got within 50 meters of the enemy trenches.
But the Mahdists were not done yet. Another huge force, about 15,000 strong, swung around to try and hit Kitchener's army from the side. Now, this was a critical moment. If that flank broke, the whole army could be rolled up. The attack slammed into a brigade of highly trained Sudanese soldiers, commanded by a tough Scotsman named Hector MacDonald. In what was some of the fiercest fighting of the day, MacDonald masterfully maneuvered his troops to face the new threat, and his men held the line, saving the entire army from disaster.
Now, in the middle of all this modern, industrial-scale killing, something happened that felt like it was straight out of another time. A throwback to a bygone era of cavalry, sabers, and sheer audacity.
And this brings us to the famous story of the 21st Lancers. As Kitchener saw the main Mahdist attack breaking apart, he ordered his cavalry forward. The 21st Lancers were a unit that, believe it or not, had never seen combat before.
and they were desperate to earn some glory. Well, they were about to get a lot more than they bargained for.
So the 400 Lancers see what they think is just a small group of enemy fighters, a perfect target, and they charge. But as they gallop over a small rise, they get the shock of their lives. Hidden from view in a dry riverbed weren't a few hundred men, but nearly 2,500 Mahdist infantry lying in wait. They had charged headlong into an ambush. It was too late to turn back. Their only option was to try and punch through.
And here's an amazing little piece of history for you. Riding in that frantic, chaotic charge, pistol in hand, was a very young lieutenant who was also working as a war correspondent for a London newspaper. And his name? Winston Churchill. This terrifying experience would stick with him for the rest of his life.
Against all odds, the Lancers crashed into the Mahdist line and somehow fought their way out the other side. The fighting was brutal, up close and personal. For their bravery, especially for rescuing wounded comrades under heavy fire, 3 Victoria Crosses were awarded. And that charge went down in history. It's widely seen as the last great full-scale cavalry charge the British Army ever made, a final, bloody, glorious end to an era of warfare.
But the spectacular bravery of the Lancers' charge can't hide the horrifying reality of what happened that day. As the dust settled, the sheer lopsided scale of the killing became clear, which brings us right back to that chilling eyewitness quote.
You don't need to be a statistician to understand this chart. The visual here is it's shocking. Look at the tiny little sliver for the Anglo-Egyptian losses, and then look at that enormous bar for the Mahdists. For every one soldier Kitchener lost, the Mahdists lost around 250. It really drives home the point. This wasn't a fight. It was an annihilation, made possible by the machine gun.
And this description from someone who was there, it's just haunting. It speaks to the cold efficiency of the slaughter. This wasn't the chaotic pileup of an ancient battle. This was methodical. The bodies were spread out over acres and acres, almost like they'd been harvested. It's a truly chilling image.
The victory was absolute, no question, but it left a dark stain. The battle saw the first major use of the controversial dum-dum bullet, which was designed to expand on impact and cause horrific wounds. After the fighting, there were accusations that Kitchener gave orders to kill the wounded Ansar, a major war crime. Even Winston Churchill, who was part of it, privately called the action brutal. But for the British Empire, the goal was achieved. The Sudan was reconquered, and their control of the region was locked in for the next 50 years.
And so we come back to this painting we started with, this image of the heroic charge. But now, when you look at it, you see it differently, don't you? You still see the bravery, of course, but you also see this small, almost outdated moment of glory happening inside a much larger, more modern, and far more terrible event. It's a beautiful painting of old-world honor set against the grim backdrop of industrial slaughter.
Which leaves us with one last tough question. The Battle of Omdurman was, without a doubt, a stunning military achievement that accomplished all of its strategic goals. At the same time, it was a lopsided massacre that showed the terrifying new power of modern weapons. It's a story of incredible heroism and incredible horror, of brilliant strategy and brutal slaughter. So the real question isn't just about what happened at Omdurman, but about how we should choose to remember an event like this.